Employees of escape rooms, what is the most incorrect thing someone has attempted to do to escape? Friend of mine works at an escape room. He told me one about a room where the solution at the end is to figure out a 4-digit code to unlock a padlock that has a key on the hasp. Said padlock is also locked to a desk. One group picked up the beefy 100+ pound desk and carried it across to the room and then inserted the key into the lock and rotated the whole desk to unlock. Not the correct solution, but it did work without breaking anything. That time at least. Not an employee, but I went to one a few months ago. We were really stuck in this one room and they had explicitly told us we were going into a more difficult room and that we needed to be extremely attentive. I found a floorboard that looked loose and it actually was. I pulled it out relatively easily and underneath looked like a large compartment of some sort. I pulled a couple more up. Admittedly, they got harder and harder until there was a massive hole in the room and no clue. Eventually we hear a voice over the speaker, quite aggressively but probably more annoyed than anything, saying there is nothing under the floorboards. I think I messed up their floor. I like the way this was written. Had me laughing a bit more than other comments for some reason. In one that I did, my group got paired up with some random people. One of those people was an off-duty cop. One of the puzzles involved a pair of handcuffs and you had to find the key. Unknown to the rest of the group, he just pulled out his handcuff keys and opened them up, skipping like half of the room. We started this way too, being handcuffed to the wall. My friend ripped hers straight out of the wall and the guy came in and was like, "You can't do that." Solved the escape room and the other hidden puzzle that played in this room. It started automatically if you solved the main one in under a certain amount of time. We actually had to escape by opening a window, climbing out and walking back inside the building, which was kind of cool. The catch: there had been builders doing renovations on the building, and they had painted the window shut. So the guy walks in after watching us fail to open it for 10 minutes saying stuff like, "Oh, you can solve the hard version of the room but can't open a window." He then tries to open it, and thinking about him strain for a solid 2 minutes to open this window after taking the pee still makes me laugh. Was an employee in Paris. Picking lock was a classic thing. Also using props that are not meant to be used. But honestly, what always infuriated me the most was when kids went there with their parents. Kids are pretty freaking smart and ironically are pretty good at respecting the rules as long as it's in the roleplay of the room. But what always makes me angry is seeing those kids being really smart and creative, finding all the right clues for their parents to diss them and never taking any clues the kid gave seriously. In the debrief at the end I always comment parents on actually listening to their kids and not steal the fun from them. I'm not an employee, but for my birthday a few years back myself, my fiance, my sister and my best friend did 10 escape rooms in one weekend. While most went smoothly, there were a few oddball incidents. My favorite of the bunch being, we were in a kidnap scenario room where we were all handcuffed standing to a bench in the middle of the room, and had to search for a key to unlock ourselves, in the dark. After 3 minutes of groping helplessly and blindly around the room, my friend, who is extremely tall, kicked behind him and flicked the light switch on. Still couldn't find the key. At this point the timer is showing we've wasted about 5 minutes, and knowing every second counts, we all start looking at the bench itself. It looks cheap, kind of lightweight, and we're all pretty strong people, so we coordinated lifting the bench around the room between the 4 of us, and managed to solve the first 4 puzzles, in handcuffs, just by adjusting the bench and passing items across it to one another. We felt stupid when we finally found the, obviously placed, key, but dang, we felt like badasses for not letting it stand in our way. The employee said he was extremely impressed, and didn't want to intervene because he was surprised at our ingenuity. That was a fun weekend. That's honestly the real spirit of escape rooms. You can't make them that way, but there's nothing better than some extra teamwork and ingenuity. Went into one with a teenage boy. It was a zombie room, where if you're touched by the zombie you can't work on the puzzles anymore. It's on a chain that gets longer as time passes. Before we went in, the host informed us that we'd have 15 minutes until the zombie emerged from its hiding spot so we could get in some stress-free puzzling. They told us everything in the room was fair game, except for a giant box with giant X's marked on it. If we opened that box, we'd lose our 15 zombie-free minutes. Despite the warning, Aaron still went right up to the box as soon as we entered and opened it. He legitimately wasn't trolling. I came here for zombies and I ain't gonna wait for them. Been working in an escape room since April. In Germany we are not allowed to actually lock the rooms for fire safety, so in most of the rooms the door is simply open, and in some we have magnetic doors. In the ones where the rooms are open we do give them a story and mission on their way that they have to complete instead of escaping. A lot of people don't listen to you at all, and we had some that were sent in and then just came out again and thought they won. In the rooms with magnetic doors we are required to keep emergency buttons that turn off the magnet. We show an example button at the introduction and explain that it is not part of the game. You can imagine how many people escape by pressing this. We also had a teenage girl thinking that she has to take the example button with her into the room and carry it around for the case of an emergency like it's a remote control. I also had a guy who reached into a technic access hole, which is labeled as technical and not part of the game, in a wall and turned off a power strip for some reason, which turned off a lot of the room. I do also love people that find a suitcase that is secured by a number combination and sit with it in the corner for 60 minutes trying to unlock it while the rest of the team is having fun and eventually take it off of him. The ones I've been to in the US haven't actually had locked doors either, for the same fire safety reasons. We could walk out at any time, though if you left, you weren't allowed back in. They would have a keypad or something next to the door, and if you unlocked that, it was the equivalent of unlocking the door. At my old place, when someone asked can I pick the locks, we'd say sure, cause we didn't think anyone would miss the point of escape rooms so much they'd bypass all the fun stuff deliberately. His wife and daughter were not nearly as amused with his abilities as he was. This is the lockpicking lawyer and we're out. I've been working at an escape room for almost 3 years now. We have a Western Gold Rush themed room, and there is a broomstick in the room which is used in one of the puzzles. On the broom it says can, which hints that it's used in connection with some pictures of can dances on the wall. There was once this group of about 5 women, each of them maybe 25-32 years old. They seemed a bit stuck, so I sent them a hint to read the broomstick and see if it related to anything in the room, in which they somehow thought it meant that they all had to link arms together and do the can dance in the middle of the room for about 2 minutes straight, in hoping it would do something or some door would unlock. At which point the only reason they stopped was because I sent them another hint saying that their dancing was not going to do anything. Fun times, Lomfeo. 2. I'm an escape room employee. One of our rooms is saloon themed and has a bunch of plastic alcohol bottles in it that are filled with varying levels of colored water. The bottles are glued shut and every group is explicitly told that the bottles have really old, like over a year old, water in them and they do not need to be opened. A guy pried one open and drank the water. Yes, he threw up. Luckily he made it to the washroom first. I did something stupid and it involved the escape room calling 911 and firefighters coming to rescue me. I put my head into a hole thinking there was a clue inside. There wasn't. My head got stuck in that hole. The firefighters laughed at me and the situation. This is the best thing ever. Instead of escaping the room, you actually managed to become even more trapped. That could be the hardest anyone's ever failed an escape room. Not an employee, but this one guy pulled the fire alarm after specifically being told that the fire alarm was not a clue. He said he thought he saw code behind the lever. Everyone's night was cut short. Technically that guy got you all out of the room though. My group was in one where we had to find a handle and use the handle as a lever to pump fluid out of a reservoir in order to complete a puzzle. The handle just happened to be roughly the same diameter as the sink drain that did not have a filter trap in it. My teammate gets it in his head that we need to use this item that is clearly a handle to something to plug the freaking sink. We spent a full 10 minutes fishing it out. The employee watching us said he'd never seen anyone do that before. All these stories of escape rooms gives me flashbacks to Legend of Zelda. It seems like half the game is an escape room to be solved. Not an employee, but we started by being handcuffed to each other. We found the key fairly quickly and tried to unlock ourselves. However, the cheap butt key broke almost right away and it took about 10 minutes of us waving and pointing at the camera for them to come help us. It was very frustrating. like in the good old horror movies, where the victim tries to signal the surveillance camera, but the guard is happily dozing in his chair, both feet on his desk and the hat pulled low. We have a do not touch sticker for things that are just props, not clues. One group pulled every dang one off and lined them up looking for a clue. Jesus. Employee for about a year here. Had a guy literally pull out a knife and cut through the fricking wall. I'm talking combat knife from his boot cut through the wall. Yes, he had to pay for damaging the room. People get crazy when put under a lot of stress and they know other people have completed the thing that they're working so hard to complete. Part of the crazy makes sense. Had a woman lug one of our smaller tabletop safes through 2 rooms because they didn't open it yet instead of leaving it there and going back to it when they figure it out. Weighted companion safe. A woman pulled out a power drill from her purse and exclaimed she'd have them out of there in no time. We actually had to go in and explain that yes, the goal is to escape, but it's more fun to actually do the puzzles and try to solve the room. Also, who carries a power drill in their purse? Where I work we have a serial killer themed room where players are separated into 2 groups and put in adjoining rooms but have to work together to get out. One of the challenges is describing what you see in your room that the other group cannot see from their room and figuring out how the clues fit together. The 2 rooms are only connected by a relatively small window that players are supposed to be able to stick their heads through to peek or to hand objects through. One team of players got sick of how bad they all were at explaining what they were seeing, so they, 3 big dudes, picked up one of their team members, a tiny Asian woman, and just kinda shoved her through the little window. From there, she could see all the clues in the other room herself, and the players in there just shoved her back through when she made a note of everything. How she made it through, I have no idea. She must have been really flexible and unhinged her shoulders or something. Funny thing was that they didn't get a terribly good escape time, but I did give them kudos on their creativity. I shouldn't be laughing, but I'm trying to not ruffle mayo during math right now. It's funnier because I'm a short guy, 4 minutes and 11 seconds, and can picture that happening to me. Was in a Cold War race against nuclear annihilation type setting. Spent 10 minutes trying to find keys for this file cabinet that held all the clues. Each drawer had its own key and we were missing one. I used my fingers to unscrew the latch on the side and opened the drawer. We beat it with 5 minutes and the guy apologized because they hadn't replaced the key before we came yet reprimanded me for altering property. So he hadn't done his job properly and had a go at you for still escaping. What a dong. Not an employee, but one time my group thought we all had to hold hands. The recording said to hold all the handlebars, so I always like to imagine the guy watching us was laughing at us. A couple of years ago at a gaming convention, a few of us did an escape room taster session, had fun, left, and moved on to the tabletop gaming area. Half an hour into a game of Pandemic, my brother gets a worried look on his face and starts looking around under the table. Crap, where's my backpack? He and another of our group set off to retrace their steps while the rest of us continue to play. Maybe 10 minutes later they return, sheepishly, with the missing backpack. He'd taken it off in the escape room earlier, put it under a table out of the way and promptly forgot about it. Turns out that the escape room staff failed to spot it when they reset the room because the next group spotted it, unpacked the contents and spent most of their session, failing to escape in the process, trying to figure out the clues of a power bank, a USB cable, a bottle of water and a chunky Kit Kat. Whoever wanted the Kit Kat bad enough had to kill everyone else to be the sole survivor. I've done one escape room, and our group was told in person and in writing multiple times not to pull anything off the walls. We failed the room because we didn't find the clue hidden in a compartment behind a wall clock that you had to take down to get to. Still angry about it. We spent 15 minutes looking for a battery to put in the flashlight we found before an employee came in and gave us one saying sorry, it was supposed to have one in it already. We were on the puzzle to the last lock on the exit door when time ran out. Also still angry about it. One of our rooms had a secret door that was magnetically sealed. A player found it by pushing on the wall and finding the spot that had a little give to it. He started to rear back like he was going to try and brute force his way through the secret door, so his game master tried to stop him by saying, "Remember, we encourage you to be aggressive, but please don't be destructive." The player nodded thoughtfully before hulking his way through the door, ripping the entire magnetic seal out of the wall. I had another player in the same room kick another door open. Not a secret door, just a regular one. Plain as the eye can see. It was one of the first few things to unlock, so the player definitely had our "don't be destructive" warning fresh in his mind. The door was deadbolted, so the bolt absolutely obliterated the other side of the door frame. One that I still can't wrap my head around. One of our rooms has a slot machine. Someone managed to destroy the locking mechanism for the entire front of the machine. There's literally nothing useful or relevant to the game in there. Not a single person on my team can figure out how they managed that. My cousin short-circuited some exposed wires he saw hanging underneath a table with a key, and it caused some secret drawer to open. The room attendant was not happy, but in his defense those wires should have been connected and hidden. It seems like there's a common theme of escape room employees not prepping the room and then getting POV when people find shortcuts or bypass the puzzles. I did an escape room a couple months ago with my boyfriend and his family. We completed the puzzle pretty good except for the fact at the start we were handcuffed. I was put in charge of unlocking everyone once we solved the puzzle for the key. Here's the kicker. I unlocked mine and my boyfriend's pretty good. Got around to his stepdad. Broke the key. They had to solve the rest of the puzzle handcuffed, and to this day still bring it up. Did one like this with my GFS family. We were in the handcuffs for like 10 minutes until someone else suggested that the guy with the key he found first might be for the handcuffs. We were still trapped in. Ha. Not an employee, but have done a few with some pretty stupid people. The worst things I've seen someone do are try forcing open the entrance door. Force meaning throw their full body against it. Try to climb into the air vents thinking it was part of the room. It wasn't. We were asked to leave that room. You know how you have to leave your phones? Someone brought their 3DS and tried to hook it onto their phone's hotspot that they turned on right before they left their phone. We might have failed the room, but I give that guy an A for creativity and effort. Someone threatened to crap on the floor. He didn't, but I thought he would. And that's pretty much it, at least until I do another one. Someone threatened to crap on the floor. He didn't, but I thought he would. I wonder if this strategy has ever worked for that guy. We did an escape room set up in a sort of hospital room type of setting, complete with a little bathroom. A clue pointed us toward the bathroom area, and my excited sister-in-law yelled, "Grab the turd," because there was actually a fake one in the toilet. The worker quickly put in the sink on the screen, so we didn't have to grab the turd luckily. Later, another worker came by and told us that he could tell we were having fun based on the shouts of "grab the turd." There was something else in the sink, not a turd, haha. Grab the turd and put it in the sink, got it. Some people pick the locks, which just, why? They didn't presumably do it as a tactic, but people show up baked and that's actually pretty fun more often than not. And finally, we have one clue where you are supposed to connect mentally and physically to reach for the metal items. Basically, hold hands and touch the identical metal things across the room from each other. Completes a circuit. Really common puzzle if you've done a lot of rooms. We had a group pry one of them off the wall, carry it over to the other and touch them together. They apparently weren't put off by the loose wires trailing behind said item after they ripped it out. This is why the place I went to used magnetic locks for most of the big doors. I recently had two very buff bro kinda guys come in to try one of our harder rooms. They weren't the fastest nor the slowest, but with a few hints they probably could have made it out in time. Except we have a puzzle where you have to find the right LP to play, and then solve a math puzzle that was played. Well, they weren't too good at math, so they just sat down and started listening to the other LPs and enjoying the classical music we had on them. I practically ended up giving them the answer, but they were chilling so they never got any further. Probably the nicest bros I've ever met. That sounds pleasant. Been working in an escape for several years throughout uni. Most often people pull the wallpapers off. Any type of poster rect. In general, if people see any wires they will pull them. Of course the front door is an emergency way out and one team on a Friday night insisted they escaped, so I didn't really argue with them and they finished with 25 minutes to spare. Got an early night then. One of the rooms we have is called Laboratory of Biohazard. One of the puzzles involves a set of 4 test tubes which are sealed shut but have fluid inside. They opened them, and by open I mean broke. Proceeded to dump the fluid all over a piece of equipment which has a socket for a different puzzle which is unlocked using said test tubes. That was great. I'll add more if I can remember. The room in question is highly linear and we have it as our easiest room. He reached behind every lock he could and tried to bypass anything he could try to. He had skinny arms. I wasn't impressed. Giving help to teams that do this is nearly impossible. Plug for our Tales from Escape Rooms. It's a dead sub-RN, but it'd be hella dope if we could reinvigorate it. I did one recently where reaching past the gate's bars was the solution. The number pad for the gate was on the other side of it on the left, and there was a small mirror there so you could see what your hand was doing, but it still felt like cheating a bit. We didn't even consider it was an option. Admittedly, we hadn't spotted the mirror until we got a hint. If you are new to the channel, you can subscribe. I publish new videos every day. Until then, check another video. Bye for now.